Hello everyone. Welcome back, I'm so glad you're here. The heat in Tampa felt different that night. It wasn't just the thick Florida air wrapping itself around Raymond James Stadium, or the endless waves of people flooding the streets in purple, black, silver, and glowing neon lights. It felt like something bigger was building in the atmosphere, something impossible to explain unless you were standing there watching thousands upon thousands of people move toward one destination with the same heartbeat. Hours before the lights ever dimmed, the parking lots were already alive. Fans who had traveled across oceans sat on blankets under palm trees trading photocards and memories like sacred treasures. Some had waited years for this moment. Some had spent entire paychecks just to be there. Some had grown up with these songs echoing through lonely bedrooms during the hardest moments of their lives. And somehow, all of them ended up in the same place on the same night beneath the fading orange sky of Tampa, waiting for 7 silhouettes that had changed the world. Inside the stadium, anticipation became physical. It crawled through the seats like electricity. Every screen flicker triggered screams. Every bass vibration from a soundcheck made hearts race harder. The giant stage stretched across the field like something from another planet, enormous LED walls towering over the crowd while moving lights scanned the stadium ceiling like stars searching the darkness. The Army bombs shimmered everywhere, endless galaxies of glowing white and purple filling every section from the floor to the highest nosebleeds. It no longer looked like a football stadium. It looked like another universe entirely. Every person there understood they were about to witness something they would remember for the rest of their lives. Then the lights died. Not slowly. Completely. An instant plunge into darkness so deep that 50,000 people stopped breathing at the exact same time. The screams came next. Not ordinary screams. These were raw emotional eruptions from people who had waited months, years, sometimes entire lifetimes to feel this moment. The opening visuals exploded across the screens like fire spreading through the sky. Massive cinematic imagery flooded the stadium while thunderous instrumentals shook the ground beneath everyone's feet. The bass was so heavy it rattled chests. You could physically feel the music before the members even appeared. And then they rose. 7 figures emerging through smoke and blazing white light while the entire stadium detonated into chaos. No recording could ever truly capture that sound. The noise from the crowd became something beyond human volume, like emotion itself had become audible. People cried instantly. Some collapsed into their friends' arms. Others screamed so hard their voices vanished within seconds. There they were, larger than life yet somehow still feeling close enough to touch. Every movement sent shockwaves through the stadium. Every stare into the camera felt personal. Every second felt unreal. The opening performance hit like a storm. Precision choreography cut through flames and lasers while the members moved with the kind of confidence only legends carry. Sweat reflected off stage lights. Pyrotechnics exploded behind them like the world itself was cracking open. Their vocals tore through the night air with unbelievable intensity. This wasn't simply a concert anymore. It felt like witnessing warriors returning to a battlefield built from music, pain, sacrifice, and love. And what made it even more emotional was knowing how far they had come to stand there. There was a time when nobody believed they would survive this industry. A small company, tiny dorms, endless criticism, mockery, exhaustion, the fear of disappearing before ever being seen. Those memories lingered beneath every note they sang that night. You could feel it in their eyes during quiet moments between songs. They weren't performing like artists trying to prove themselves anymore. They were performing like people who had already conquered impossible odds yet still carried every scar from the journey. As the first met began, the energy shifted. Breathless laughter echoed across the stage as they looked around the stadium almost in disbelief. One member wiped sweat from his face and smiled at the ocean of lights stretching endlessly into the distance. Another paused for a second longer than usual, staring into the crowd like he was trying to memorize every face. Their voices carried warmth, exhaustion, gratitude, and emotion all at once. Even simple greetings became unforgettable because of how sincere they sounded. Tampa screamed every time they spoke, every accent, every laugh, every tiny interaction becoming part of the memory people would replay forever. Then the music changed again. The softer songs hit differently. When the lights dimmed into shades of blue and silver, the stadium transformed into something heartbreakingly beautiful. Tens of thousands of ARMY bombs moved together like waves under moonlight while their voices blended into one giant choir. The members walked across extended stages slowly, no explosive choreography this time, just emotion laid bare beneath the night sky. One held the microphone with trembling hands during a high note that seemed to carry years of pressure inside it. Another smiled while singing, but his eyes glistened under the lights, and the crowd noticed instantly. Fans began crying all over again. Because these songs were never just songs. For so many people there, they were survival. They were the soundtrack to depression, loneliness, heartbreak, anxiety, fear, and healing. Every lyric carried memories. Every melody connected strangers who once believed nobody understood them. And standing there inside Raymond James Stadium, hearing 50,000 voices sing together beneath the humid Florida night, it became painfully obvious why BTS had become more than artists to millions around the world. One camera shot showed fans holding signs that read things like, "You saved me," and "Home is wherever BTS is." Another showed parents crying beside children barely old enough to understand how massive this moment truly was. Friends hugged each other through entire songs. Couples held hands beneath floating lights while singing every word. Some fans simply stood frozen in disbelief, overwhelmed by the realization that the people who had once existed only through phone screens and headphones were suddenly real and alive right in front of them. And then came the solos. Each member stepped into their own world for a few minutes, revealing completely different sides of themselves. One performance was pure fire and confidence, sharp movements slicing through darkness while flames erupted from the stage edges. Another felt deeply intimate, almost fragile, the kind of performance that made an entire stadium fall silent just to listen more carefully. One member danced with such emotional intensity it looked like he was telling his entire life story without speaking. Another turned the stadium into a party so explosive people forgot they were even tired after hours of screaming. The transitions between these moments were cinematic. Giant visuals crashed across the screens with breathtaking detail. At times it felt futuristic and untouchable, at other times heartbreakingly human. The production was massive, yes, but what truly overwhelmed everyone was the emotional honesty underneath it all. They weren't hiding behind spectacle. The spectacle only amplified the vulnerability already living inside the music. At one point during the show, the members paused to look at the crowd while the stadium lights illuminated the sea of ARMY bombs. Silence lingered for a brief second before one of them softly admitted how much they had missed moments like this. The reaction from the audience was immediate and deafening. Because everyone knew what had been lost during the years when stages went dark and tours disappeared. Everyone remembered isolation, empty arenas, distance, fear, uncertainty. So standing together again inside that stadium carried a weight far beyond entertainment. It felt like healing. The longer the concert continued, the more reality itself seemed to disappear. Time lost meaning. Songs blended into emotion. The members sprinted across the stage with unstoppable energy despite exhaustion visibly creeping into their bodies. Their clothes clung with sweat beneath the brutal stadium lights, but they kept going harder with every track. Vocals became rougher yet more emotional. Dance breaks became more explosive. Smiles became wider. It was as if the energy from the crowd kept reviving them over and over again. Then came the unexpected moments people would talk about forever. A member laughing uncontrollably after forgetting part of a lyric while the others teased him mercilessly. Another suddenly kneeling at the edge of the stage to stare directly into a fan's sign before placing his hand over his heart. One slipping during choreography for half a second only to recover instantly with a grin that sent the crowd into hysterics. Tiny human moments inside a gigantic production, reminding everyone that beneath the global fame were still 7 people sharing a night together with fans they loved deeply. As the concert pushed deeper into the night, the emotional intensity only grew stronger. The ballads arrived like emotional earthquakes. Phone flashlights filled the stadium while softer instrumentals echoed through the darkness. Voices cracked while singing lyrics about youth, fear, dreams, and loss. One member closed his eyes during an especially emotional line, and when the camera zoomed in, tears were visibly gathering. The crowd reacted instantly, singing louder to support him, almost like 50,000 people were trying to hold him together through sheer love alone. That moment changed the atmosphere completely. You could feel people realizing how much pressure these artists had carried for years. The endless schedules, the expectations, the criticism, the loneliness hidden behind fame. Yet despite everything, they kept returning to the stage night after night, giving every ounce of themselves to complete strangers who somehow became family. And maybe that was the most powerful thing about the entire night. It never felt fake. Not once. The emotions flooding through Raymond James Stadium felt painfully real. The exhaustion was real. The gratitude was real. The connection was real. In an industry often built on polished perfection, BTS had somehow created something far more powerful: honesty. And honesty hits harder than perfection ever could. Near the end of the show, the energy exploded one final time. The massive anthems arrived. Fireworks erupted into the Tampa sky while bass thundered through the stadium hard enough to shake seats. The members ran wildly across the extended stage, shouting, laughing, screaming lyrics with every remaining drop of energy inside them. Fans jumped in unison until entire sections of the stadium physically vibrated. Confetti cannons blasted endless storms of silver into the air while giant flames roared beside the stage. It felt less like a concert finale and more like the climax of a massive cinematic journey, years in the making. Every camera shot looked legendary. Every beat felt larger than life. And still, beneath all that chaos, there were quiet moments that hit the hardest. One member stopping just to stare at the crowd in silence. Another bowing deeply for several seconds longer than expected. A small smile exchanged between two members after finishing a difficult choreography sequence. Tiny reminders that they understood exactly how meaningful this night was. When the final songs arrived, nobody wanted them to end. The realization spread slowly across the stadium like heartbreak creeping in. Fans sang louder, screamed harder, tried desperately to hold on to every final second. The members looked emotional too. You could hear it in their voices. See it in the way they kept turning around to wave at every corner of the stadium, refusing to leave parts of the crowd unseen. Then came the final goodbye. No dramatic speeches could fully capture the emotion in that moment. The members stood together beneath falling confetti while the stadium glowed like a galaxy around them. Their faces carried exhaustion, joy, disbelief, and gratitude all at once. One by one, they thanked the crowd, their voices softer now, almost vulnerable after such an explosive night. Some struggled to finish sentences without smiling emotionally. Others simply looked around speechless, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had just shared with tens of thousands of people. And when they finally bowed together, the entire stadium screamed as if trying to stop time itself. But eventually, even magic has to fade. The lights slowly rose again. The members disappeared beneath the stage. The music softened, and reality returned. Yet something inside the stadium had changed forever. People walked out emotionally wrecked, clutching banners, light sticks, and memories they already knew would stay with them for the rest of their lives. Some cried while leaving. Others sat silently in disbelief. Groups of fans gathered outside the stadium long after midnight, still singing songs together beneath the humid Tampa sky because nobody was emotionally ready to let go yet. Cars crawled through endless traffic while concert clips replayed instantly across social media. Voices were gone from screaming too much. Feet ached. Makeup had melted hours ago. But none of it mattered. Because for one night in Tampa, thousands of strangers became part of the same emotional story. A story about music powerful enough to cross languages. A story about 7 artists who refused to disappear. A story about fans who carried those songs through the darkest moments of their lives. And under the lights of Raymond James Stadium, with fireworks burning above the Florida sky and 50,000 voices singing together as one, that story felt immortal.